or sharing some of their experience with us as well. This session is streamed live on the internet, so hopefully we have some people following us on the internet as well, and you are more than welcome to ask questions or share your insights as well. And we have folks monitoring those channels. I think we'll just get started. In the first round, I will ask everybody to maybe talk about themselves, what you do, what were you doing before, and maybe some interesting tidbits about your work. And then from there, we'll just go on to the next series of questions. Who would like to start? All right, I'll get Ivan to start.
Hi, my name's Ivan. I'm a network manager at Amazon Web Services. I'm responsible for growing and scaling the data center network, predominantly in Asia Pacific and all of the regions that we have there, but also occasionally globally. I wasn't always a network manager, I wasn't always a manager, and I wasn't always in networking. So I've had a lot of different lives out there. I started as a systems engineer and on a help desk and moved over organically as my career has taken me. So there's no path. It is probably the most interesting tidbit that I've got. But I'm here today and I'd love to answer some questions. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Ivan. Maybe Susan next.
I'm Susan Forney from Hurricane Electric. I'm a network engineer at Hurricane. Since 2018, I just joined them a little bit ago. Before that, I was a network engineer and network manager, ran the team at a company called the Markley Group, which runs, among other things, the Boston Internet Exchange. So I ran the Internet Exchange for them in addition to their enterprise and their commercial networks. And before that, I worked at a small software company in Redmond, Washington, of which you may have heard, Microsoft, for 15 years. And I also was a network engineer at Boeing for a little while before that. So I have over 25 years of experience as a network engineer. I am, most of the women that started with me in network engineering, there are not a lot of them that are still network engineers. Some of them do other things, some of them are still in the industry, some of them aren't. But it is an industry that seems to have a little bit of atrophy where women are concerned, at least as far as I've noticed. But anyway, I'm glad to be here and talk to you about what I know about being a woman in tech in particular and careers in tech.
Georgina?
Bulla Vinaka, everyone. I'm from Fiji, the small island states in the Pacific. I am the senior applications, projects, and innovations manager at our local bank, HFC Bank. I have over 11 years of software development skill sets. Prior to joining our local bank, I actually came from ANZ Bank, and I was one of the regional managers for the Suva Hub. I looked after 12 countries, and I ran the business performance and MIS team. I actually started from ground up, from being a receptionist at one of the software firms to help desk, learning IT. I actually had a stint in government for quite some time, and then I started doing the software development, .NET framework for government, and developed softwares along the way until I became what I am today. One of the interesting tidbits about me is that I advocate a lot in Fiji for women in tech or STEM, and I also co-founded a project called Mobile Me Mapathon, which is the first of its kind in the Pacific, where I'm looking at getting accessibility using technology to get this and advocate for persons with disability. So most of the things that I have in my career are self-interest, to try and bring out the Pacific, the underrepresented groups, and emphasize and sort of celebrate technology with social impact. Thank you.
All right, that's impressive and interesting. Next we have Noraini.
Hi, I'm Noraini. I started my career in 2000 as a network engineer and oversee peering connectivity for Telecom Malaysia. And I'm originally from Malaysia. And within Telecom Malaysia, doing a lot of network engineering, starting from peering and then moving towards different divisions, still looking into building internet. And then after a few years, I think after 7 years, I moved to product development and product management role, but it's still about delivering the service to build internet. And then I joined Microsoft 5 years ago and handling peering for Asia region.
All right, thank you. So those are all excellent and interesting information for us. So I have a question. Since all of you now are doing technical work, is it really a must to have strong technical background when you are starting out and venturing into a technical career? What is your experience or advice for folks thinking about developing their career to go deep into the technical space or technical domain? Who'd like to take it up? Or maybe Susan or Ivan? Yeah?
I can.
Yeah?
What I've noticed in my career is that the amount of experience you need to get in a job in tech is kind of related to the economy. Mm-hmm. If the economy is like it is now, especially in the United States, where there aren't enough people for the jobs, and they think that you have the ability, the employer thinks you have the ability to learn something and that they can teach you, then you might be able to land a job in technology at the entry level without any experience because they'll train you. Yeah. If it's an economic downturn, then of course, now it's a buyer's market and they're going to go for people with a little bit more experience. But I remember going through the dot-com era where people, like used to be real estate salesmen, and we even had somebody in our knock who had been a greeter at Walmart. I mean, they were coming from all over the place and getting these jobs in technology and getting the chance to start a career. And by the way, that greeter at Walmart did do pretty well. They ended up being able to maintain their career. Some people can, some people can't, but it isn't impossible if you enter the career at the right time.
Mm-hmm. Interesting. Ivan?
So on the back of that, especially talking about .com, my career started after the .com bust, and I found it very hard to get my foot in the door. I had some coaching and guidance from a close friend who saw an interest in computer products and helping people and fixing things. So he suggested to go off and spend some time doing some courses, which I did, and it was fantastic. I learned a lot. It was right, hit my interest peak. But then I found it very hard to get a job. I applied absolutely everywhere with all of these qualifications that I had. That meant absolutely nothing without experience. Mm. So it wasn't until I found someone that gave me a chance on a help desk that got me started, and my career grew from there. So I think while it is really important to know your detail and your tech, it's also equally important just to keep trying. Right. Don't give up and have a learning mindset. Because you can't possibly know everything. Like the last thing that I want when I hire someone is someone who thinks that they know everything, and someone who feels that they're at the top of their game. Like what else have you got to learn after that? Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Georgina or Noraini, do you have anything to add to that, or?
So my degree was in electronic. Mm-hmm. But the job I was offered, I was so lucky that the internet started. So being offered as the network engineer with a role in peering, so it's actually you need to start it from the beginning, because I doesn't get any knowledge on what the data network is, and basic knowledge I have it, but not in terms of peering. So the train is provided, so you need to study and get more knowledge along your careers and through your work.
Do you remember how long did it take you to get the hang of things, if there's such a thing?
Well, we get to being trained like initial first few weeks, and then in the first few months we really try to a lot of things in the lab or even in the actual network because we just building up, right? So it's quite a nice playground for us.
Yeah, so it's all about self-motivation and pushing yourself to learning new things.
Yes, it's totally new to me, and I remember that initially when I met my manager, he handed me like 3 pieces of pages of paper what spearing all about. It's all about. So that is how I started, learning.
Georgina, do you have anything to add?
When I graduated, I was filled with a lot of enthusiasm to go to interviews. But I was judged the first time I walked in, filled with ideas and hopefully trying to get that job. I didn't actually get jobs the first time round. But I realized early on that I needed to do the work that I love doing by volunteering my services through networks and keep on trying. You don't stop trying. And you had to keep positive because every interview took a little piece of me. But it also built a stronger personality. So I learned through that, and then I was able to secure a job whilst helping someone. And that's one thing that I think a lot of the students that come out with this big dream that you'll get the job then and there. But sorry to say that it's not always the case. But the only thing I can assure you is you need to keep on trying. And like what every other panelist here has said, you have to keep a positive mindset and also keep the end game in mind on where you want or what you want to do. Because I was really passionate about showing my website. So I continued to do that.
Yeah, that's interesting. All right, I'm going to go to another question. And then after that, I'm going to let the audience maybe ask some questions or contribute some input to the discussion. The path to success is not always a road full of roses and sunshine and all that. Is there anything any of you can share about learning from failures or where you had some failure that propelled you to the next level, to the next stage, right? Of course, you don't have to share anything sensitive about your work, but in general, did you have those moments when you were working or in your career? Maybe Susan can start again.
So many moments. I think that I would tell you about the first job I had in networking, where I was recruited into my group. I was actually working as a technical writer, thinking that I would, get my break to work in network engineering. And what happened was the head of the telecom department went into the editing department and said, I need somebody who's technical to write a field specification for all the physical plant, and I want somebody who can do it. And then my manager said, well, Susan Forney has a scientific calculator, maybe she could do it. And so unwittingly, I just kind of got, matched into my first job. And so I went to work in the telecommunications group, and after I did the field specification, they needed someone to work on the OpenView network management tool. And nobody wanted to do it, so I volunteered. And the guy that was the head of the project, started out, he was going to run it, and I was going to be kind of his gal Friday type of thing, help him out with it. 6 weeks into the project, when I barely knew anything except how to log into the Unix box that hosted the network management software, he left. And nobody else in the department wanted to do that job. And so all the engineers in there got together and they said, well, I think she can do it. And even if she can't, it'll give us some time before we have to do it. So that's how I got my chance, was because no one else wanted to do the tools. And I started out, and I had no idea. I mean, I realize what it entails now to deploy something like that, and with no knowledge of the tool, no knowledge of Unix, and very little practical knowledge of networks, I ended up deploying that project 2 weeks ahead of schedule and on budget. And it was honestly just a miracle that it happened that way. But I think it was just because of, mostly it was because I didn't think I couldn't do it.
Right.
I had no idea how hard it was, so I didn't think I couldn't do it.
All right, cool. Georgina, do you have any moments like that you can share?
I guess I have that a lot, whether I'm in programming or whether I'm coming across with people. But like she said, you always have to do something new, try it out, don't stay in your comfort zone. One of the things that had happened to me was I was selected on a team to do a program that was going to build things from ground up. And that program was actually used in our country. So it was an honor to be selected. But the first thought that came into my mind was, how do I do this? And I started panicking because I needed to read up on a lot of libraries and I needed to understand what was going to happen. So waking moments, 24 hours, trying to get that project done and completed on time. Yeah, like she said, it's definitely, you need to keep that momentum going, that positivity, and you also need to believe in yourself that, yes, I can do this.
All right, awesome. Ivan or Noraini, anything from you guys?
I might take a different approach. I think we've all had projects that have gone awry and all that. We don't need another one of those, or another 100 or so from me. But from a career point of view, there was one time that I wasn't feeling challenged in my role, and I made the choice to go to another organisation, and that was something that I wanted to do, and I hired into this organisation as a systems engineer, and I was very excited to start. They offered me the job after the interview, and I was like, yes, thank you. I don't have any questions. When do I get started? What I didn't realise at the time was that I was hired into an organisation that was expecting revenue growth off the back of signing a large deal that never came. So that job didn't last very long, and for about 6 months I was doing things that I was doing 4 years earlier in my career, and I wasn't overly happy about that. So I had to move on after 6 months, and that wasn't a great point in my career. I felt deflated at that point, but at the same time it was a lesson learnt from a perspective that I now know to ask questions in interviews. Interviews are two-way conversations, and it's really important to make sure that the company you're going into is the right one for your own interest and your own progression.
All right, interesting. Noraini, do you have anything to share?
Well, I have a small incident that I may share, and perhaps a good sharing to all of you as well. So when I started my career, after a few weeks of training, and then start doing the configurations in the network, and suddenly I accidentally shut down one of the links. And fortunately, one of my teammates tried to figure out what's happened and why the links doesn't have any traffic on it, and they figure out that someone has shut down the internet. So luckily there are 3 links. During 2000, having 155 meg links is very generous, and it's quite big. So at least I bring down one of it, and 2 is still working. That was great, but I actually my teammates doesn't get angry to me, but actually try to recover, bring back the service, and that's what I feel the help from the manager at that time, understanding my capability and keep on guiding me, give me a good training, is something that I appreciate. And I'm hoping that the people manager here will do the same as well to your fresh graduate, and perhaps give more understanding on them and build their confidence as well.
Over time, yeah, that's interesting and useful insight as well. Let's pause for a moment to see if there's anyone in the crowd who would like to ask any questions to our panelists, or if you have anything interesting to share with the audience, both here and on the internet. Do we have any questions from the internet by any chance? No? All good? Yeah, we have one at the back. Can you please come to the mic so that we can capture your question or comments? And please tell us
Hi,
who you are. Yeah.
I'm Shamim from Bangladesh. I met Adili back in 2014 when BDNOG 1 was conducted, and he was one of our network security instructor. That time I met not only Adili, but also Champika from ICANN, Maz from Japan, and Papu Bhai, Fakrul Papu from APNIC. So that was kind of my turning point of my career. Before that, I was kind of frustrated, like what I am going to do, or there is no new thing I am working on. So that drives me into network security, and after that, I don't have to look back. So I keep rising, and in 2019, I worked with Champ and Maz in Sanog as a co-instructor in network security workshop in both Sanog 32 and Sanog 34. And I have a session tomorrow on securing network infrastructure with the help of machine learning. And that is the goal of me following Adili, Maz, and Champika. So that is I want to share with all of you, that what you guys are telling, that never look back, never quit, just do new things, try to do new things. That is what I got. And here I am. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Congratulations. Good story. All right, moving on. So work is not always easy, and of course, other than work, you have to do other things in life, like managing a family, or or doing a hobby or something like that. Can you guys share with us, how do you guys normally deal with stress so that you don't go bonkers or go crazy and get really depressed? Who would like to start with this? Maybe Georgina, if you can share with us.
For stress, I actually like to watch a lot of YouTube videos, movies, and de-stress on the couch. Also share stories with my husband. But yes, sometimes walking away and disconnecting from your computer really helps. At least even during the day, just switching it off and taking a quiet corner, walking out and just saying, I need time for myself. That's how I normally deal with stress. But stress can also be a good thing, because when you're programming, it also makes your mind think of ways and things really quickly. So yeah.
All right. Susan?
Well, I raised 2 children when I was a network engineer at Microsoft, and that's, I was a regular network engineer. I did maintenance windows and had to stay up all night and had to juggle, who was, which one of me or my husband, who was going to take care of who when, and manage all of that. So there was quite a bit of stress. I think the way that I handled it was that I set definite boundaries on when I did my work. So I had a home office, and I would come home every night, and I would put my laptop on the desk in case somebody called me, like if I was on call or somebody I needed to start working because there was a problem. But I made a deal with my children that I had office hours at home. So like I was only allowed like 6 hours a week after I got home, when I was supposed to be in the office. And then if something went to to hell in a handbasket, then that all bets were off and something was broken and they knew I had to fix it. But otherwise, if they saw me doing email or peeking at a network or a router stuff, they'd come in there and go, "Mom, you're not supposed to be at work." So there was, I made a deal with them so that I would have time for my family and I would have time away from the job. But I think that the way you get stressed out the most is when you don't take a step back from what you're doing and you don't, give yourself a chance to rest and relax. And then if you don't do that, it just builds up.
Right. Okay. Ivan?
That's a really good idea. I also have 2 kids, so my wife also works full-time, and we both have very full-on careers. So it is a very tough thing to deal with when you have to work late and have all these windows. And I really like that idea of, work time but a limited amount. How to deal with stress? Wow, not very well. I like to start my day clearly. I run, believe it or not, every morning, and I love training for different goals and running goals to get my mind off whatever I'm working on. I used to go for runs at lunch, and I found that was really awesome to break up my day and de-stress after a bunch of morning meetings and get ready for the afternoon lot. But part of the other thing that I do is I try to take and not always succeed, but I do try to take a step back and segment my day in different times and not think about work. So I have a transition between work and home, and that transition is usually during my commute, where I might read a book or watch a TV show or something like that, and then I get back into home and there's homework, and that's a different phase, and then before I go to bed there's a different transition phase. So that helps somewhat, but not all the time.
All right, cool. Norani, can you share some tips with us?
Yeah, there are times that maybe we are in stress, but sometimes it might be you don't really need to worry anything. So usually when I feel so stressed, I'll get to talk to someone, maybe someone from your team, or if it's related about your family, then talk to someone within your family and find whether that worry is actually clueless or some things that you shouldn't worry about. So yeah, talking to someone help you basically, and then trying to disconnect is very good as well from your work and doing something. I started doing gardening, so I love it so much, and try to grow things and see how life is, right, from another angle. So that's how I de-stress myself.
All right, cool. Coincidentally, I also started gardening a few years ago, and I realized that it helps to de-stress, especially when the bees started to come and visit. So I started to take photos of the bees and post them on Instagram and on Facebook.
Can I get both of you to come to my place?
Yeah. All right, cool. Maybe another question that I have for all of you is, if you were able to start all over again, how would you do things differently in terms of planning for your career, or preparing you better for what is to come, if there's such a thing? Who would like to try this or go for this? Anyone? Ivan, maybe?
Sure. I wasn't always a very keen learner. I would get bored very easily, and it took me a long time to find that drive to learn, drive to study, and drive just to keep pushing myself. When I found that drive, it's like a light switch went off and my whole life changed. I switched careers more rapidly. I started helping people a lot more. I started feeling more fulfilled in my career as well. If I had the chance, I'd go back and slap myself and say, learn this. Do that. I know it's interesting for you, and go down that path. Here's the book that set it all off, and give it to my 18-year-old self.
Cool. Susan?
Well, I think that for me, like a lot of women in my era, I wasn't steered toward STEM, even though I was very good in math and science. So I ended up going to college and studying, getting a Bachelor of Arts degree. And I think that, what I would, tell myself today is to follow the dream of going to the, the engineering degree, which I eventually went back to school for anyway, but I didn't at the time. And at the time, I also was very worried about anyone finding out that I was, smart at all. I remember being in a class with, a math class with one of my friends from the newspaper where I worked on the college newspaper, and I got an A in the math class, but I never talked about my grades. And then he asked me after the next quarter, he goes, "Oh yeah, what did you get in the math class?" And I just, offhand just told him the truth. And then immediately I was just like, "Oh no, they're gonna find out. They're gonna think I'm weird." And so I guess, what I would tell myself now is that, one, go after the engineering degree that you really want to do, and don't be afraid if people find out that you're not dumb.
Georgina, any advice?
Oh, wow.
No pressure.
Well, I was born with my disability. So if I were to go back in time to when I was 18, at that time, I've been a science student all that while, and I had a different goal. I thought of medicine, that career. But if I were to advise myself at that age, when I was one of the brightest students, but I had a lot of people advising me as to which career suited me and what I should do. If I were to go back in time, I would actually tell myself, don't listen to them. Just do it. Just take the chance, be more adventurous, do what you love doing. Don't let what other people think and their perception of you guide you into something that is really something you really want to do. It's not that I don't love what I am right now. I think that I could have done things differently back then. I was more of an introvert. But I'm thankful for the experience of the life that I've had, because now I've started to sort of being able to talk more. But if I were that 18-year-old person again, I'd say just go and do what you love doing.
Just do it, yeah? All right. Noraini?
Well, I would like to still do the same again.
Okay.
I decided to be an engineer when I was 15, and I was so adamant about that, and I go against my parents' wish to go to other school, and I instead go to the technical school and choose engineering as my future. So I'm glad that I chose that path, and here I'm now. Although there's a lot of, things have been happening in these 20 years, how you build your careers. But looking back into that, it's always a good step in my careers, good years, good friends and networks that we have, and it was great.
All right, amazing. So a lot of people these days, especially the young ones, are on social media, using it for various reasons. Do you guys think that social media has a huge role on someone's career, either to grow it, or maybe what opportunities out there are there in the social media for helping someone to grow their career? Who would like to go first? Maybe Susan?
Well, honestly, I think it could have a bigger impact than it does. I think about, like the LinkedIn, for example, which is supposed to be a career forum, and the promise that you're going to learn, get connections and get to know all of these people. And I still find that most of the things that I've, gained in my career, like, key alliances and mentors and finding jobs and all of those things that these sites are supposed to do are done the old-fashioned way by talking to people and getting to know them that way. That, I have a lot of contacts on LinkedIn, and it is a useful communications tool, but as a career development tool, it hasn't been that impactful.
Right. Okay. What do you think, Ivan?
Yeah, I'd agree with that. I feel that the best career paths and decisions that I've made have all been as a result of talking to someone that I knew, or going out and meeting someone for the first time and getting to know them and getting to understand them and having a conversation about what their company is doing and what the job is. That was one of the lessons learnt that I took from my career faux pas. I think LinkedIn has a place. I think Facebook, Snapchat, all these other social media platforms all have a place, and they're not going away anytime soon. I just like to always go back to, if you are using that as a platform, use it wisely. Don't use it as to hoard your connections or to get as many friends as you can, because it's a true connections, a true friends that will really help you in your life.
Sounds good. Can we ask the audience if they have any questions or anything to contribute to the discussion? Someone? We have one person.
Hi, my name's Shen from Melbourne. Thanks for sharing your experience. I think you being very open. I'd like to challenge you as well to maybe explain and talk about a really difficult conversation you had with your manager or someone higher than you. What was the conversation about? Why were you scared to have that conversation, and how did it go? Thanks.
That's a powerful question. Who would like to take that up? Ivan? All right.
I ask the same question when I interview people. So I suppose it's only fair that, more than happy. So my horrible conversation was based around a mistake that I've made as an engineer. And that mistake caused a data center outage for the company that I was working in at the time. So the conversation went along the lines of, you've stuffed up, this is a horrible mistake, you shouldn't have made it, you should have known better. And, I went away thinking, okay, cool, I'll do better next time. But there was no real way of enacting that. And I look back now at that conversation, and that was really terrible feedback. There was nothing constructive to take out of it. There was no learning from me apart from, feeling really terrible about what I've done. The real value I got out of it was I dove deep on what I did, and I learnt what I did wrong, and I learnt the mistake, and I take that in knowledge. The next time I did that change, I did it successfully, and that's something that stayed with me. But if my manager was, still my manager, and he wouldn't be having that conversation with me again, I'd be very upfront with him, and I'd ask him for feedback, as opposed to being really scared like I was at the time.
All right. Anyone else would like to chip in? Georgina? Yeah.
Having strong conversations or giving feedback, it can be done. First, for myself, when I had to have that conversation with my line manager, I had to prepare myself because I wasn't too sure as to how the outcome would go. So I'm nervous. But I'm thankful that the person that was my line manager was able to put me at ease and sort of elicit that conversation, that hard conversation out. And it was because of him that he became my mentor so that I would be able to do that for my own teammates. Sometimes people use methods, whether it's positive, negative, positive, they give that kind of feedback. But I felt that the best that worked was giving the feedback and showing the result of the action that had happened. And then at the same time, maintaining that conversation to be a little bit empathetic, but at the same time ensuring that the point is put across. So for me, my personal experience with my line manager had sort of mentored me and helped me have that conversation when I stepped up to the next level, to have that with the staff that I was looking after that.
All right, thank you. Did anyone else have any question? No? Yeah, Sienna. Can you use the mic, please? Thank you.
Hello. People talk about... I am Sienna from APNIC. People often talk about sponsors or mentors within their career, and I was just wondering if you have had them or one, and if you have, how did you go about encouraging or finding them and recruiting them to your side?
All right, thank you, Sienna. Maybe Susan?
Well, mentoring is, when it really works, it's a personal relationship, and it doesn't necessarily have anything to do with obviously it's important that the person who's mentoring you has the skill to do that, but it is more your ability to have a rapport with that person that really makes that work. And you'll discover that when you have mentors is that the ones that you really have the rapport with, you kind of maintain a relationship with them, even though the formal mentoring relationship has kind of fall by the wayside. You're either not working for them anymore, or you're not at the same place, but you keep in contact and you check in and ask questions. And so I find that it's a lot more important about the personal aspect of it. That's the most important thing. And when I advise people about, doing mentors, and, they say, well, I'd like this person to mentor me, I said, well, go in there with the expectation and set up the expectation up front that you'd like to have a couple of trial sessions to make sure that, you can try each other on for size and whether or not the relationship is going to work out for you. And then after you have had a couple of meetings, then you can agree whether you want to move forward or not. But that way it doesn't waste everybody's time, because sometimes you think someone, would have a lot of valuable input for your career, and then you find out that, you aren't comfortable talking to the person for whatever reason, or, maybe they're not that good one-on-one, or they don't have the skill set that you thought they did. And, having a trial period is a great way to figure that out, so that you don't, waste a lot of time with a mentor, going through the motions that isn't really working for you.
All right. Anyone else would like to share with us?
Yeah, I found if you want to get feedback from someone else, it might be difficult for you to get an honest feedback. So what I do in improving myself is actually to find a mentor that I can take his or her trait as an example, and do and try as best that I can to actually copy what is successful for her, or very good of him. So that is how I use that to improve myself. I might not go into a formal mentor relationship, but looking into how those people perform and how they do their job, how I try to improve myself by looking at them. Yeah.
Okay, interesting approach. Anyone else? Do we have any questions on the? Oh, we do. All right, so Sienna will read the question for us.
From Ying Chu online. Hi, Ying Chu from Taiwan. Does anyone ever feel to meet the glass ceiling in their own career life? And what suggestions to younger generation if they want to work in the technical area, how to break this glass ceiling?
Did everybody hear the question? Mm-hmm. Right. Who would like to give a go at the question? Maybe Georgina? Yeah. All right.
Okay. My interpretation of a glass ceiling is the barriers that you put in front of yourselves. So I'm currently doing my work at the bank, but in order for me to break barriers, I start to volunteer my time for causes that I find worthy, that will actually make impact in my communities. So I've started to advocate for women in tech. I keep things interesting by trying to have meetups with people of my same peers, so that I can constantly be updated on what's happening in the region or in the country, and at the same time talk about things that I see online with peers that are like-minded. And that helps me grow. That sharpens that insight, because not everything you can find on Google. Those relationships, those connections, those networks, you do that by actually putting yourself out there and asking people that you think, who are more wiser or have more knowledge or skill set and expertise in that by going and asking them straight up. So when you do that volunteeringly, you start to build a certain level of knowledge, and you start to find that you can actually apply that in your workplace, and you start bringing in new things. So my advice to the person online is break that glass by taking the first step to getting outside your comfort zone. Meet up with friends. Get to know what is coming in in the marketplace for IT. You've got blockchain, AI. You've got things. You've got peers. Leverage over those connections so that you can learn more. And then eventually it will trickle into what you do at work. Because once you are feeling happy, when you go to work, you are filled with so much ideas that you're offering things that are quite new to the organization because you've put yourself out there and learned how to break that glass.
That's interesting. Anyone else? Yeah, go ahead.
So very much in line with that is, one of the things that I always think about is the locus of control. Sometimes when you feel like you're beneath a glass ceiling and you don't know how to get past it, there's a hemisphere of things that matter and another hemisphere of things that you could control. Then when you overlap those hemispheres, and then you write in the things that matter to you and also the things that you can control, and only the things in that middle are the things that you really should be focusing on. So if you're feeling that there's a glass ceiling and there's just nowhere for you to go, start focusing your efforts into your control hemisphere, and it might mean that you need to change things up where you are, make things more interesting for yourself, or it might mean that it's time to go and find a new challenge.
Very sound advice. Okay, we are actually running out of time, so this will be the last round, and I'm going to invite everybody one by one to maybe say some final thoughts or some advice that haven't been said yet to the audience, either here or at home. Maybe we'll start with Noraini, and then... Yeah.
That's a surprise.
Yeah.
Be confident with yourself. Try your best, and definitely network with people. You might not find any solution for yourself by yourself. Most probably people surrounding you can actually give you idea on how you can get through things or a new job or new interests in your life as well. So try your best in everything that you do. So that's my advice.
Sounds good. All right. Ivan.
Simon Sinek is one of my favorite authors, and he talks about playing the infinite game. You don't need to be the best tomorrow. You don't need to be the best ever, but you could continue to work to try and be your best every single day and be better than you are, better than you were yesterday, tomorrow, and so on and so forth. And that's some advice that I live by every day.
It's very deep. Susan?
I think that for people starting out in their career, that the important thing is to assess the playing field where you are. Sometimes it's not fair and it's not level, and if you figure that out, then you can figure out what's possible in the situation you're in. Where people tend to get into situations that are untenable, that they can't overcome, is when they haven't determined what the playing field is really like, and whether and what the obstacles are in their way, and then you either work around them or you work through them. But if you don't identify that in the beginning and you just assume that everything is level, then you might not be as successful as you want to be.
Right. Be realistic. Yeah. Georgina?
I think there was a question on social media and how messages go really fast. For me, using social media on the 3rd of December was an eye-opener because I was able to co-found a mobile meme mapathon in Suva. So basically, I used Facebook and the power of people to volunteer their time to come down to a particular spot for within a few hours just to map out the Suva area. For me, that was powerful. That was actually seeing tech being used in a very social, impactful way. And we were able to plot points within that short span of time. Social media can be used for good, and it can also be detrimental because a lot of people spend a lot of time connected to that they forget that there's a person sitting opposite the table with them. My advice is, yes, you can use your tech and make really good, great community projects. But you must remember at the end of the day, people are the most important things in your life because you are the person that actually created that tech. And I think there's sometimes where we sometimes interchange that role where the tech becomes your life. Mm-hmm. So my advice to everyone out there is, yes, we got great careers, but at the end of the day, it is you, yourself. You're a person, and you have dreams, and you have ambitions. So don't forget that it's not necessarily the career, it's actually you that made the career. So wherever you are out there, and you're thinking about what's the next career in your life, think about what you as a person want that to be. Because at the end of the day, a career is something that you aspire to, because you've got a vision in your head that, yes, I'm looking forward to doing that. So that's my advice to everyone online. Please look up, talk to the person that's in front of you, and at the same time, don't let the tech rule your life, because you can use the tech to do good and be part of the community. Thank you.
Awesome. I like that advice because we go into the social after this and we can talk to another person face to face. So that's all we have for today, and I would like to thank all the panelists for contributing and for sharing their experiences with the rest of us. I would also like to thank whoever is here in the room, all of you who came here to listen in and to contribute to the discussion as well as those who are online for asking questions and tuning in. Hopefully we'll see you again at the next APNIC conference. And until then, good night and goodbye. Thank you very much, everybody.